morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you are in the world, welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Carl Anthony and this is AutoVision News Radio live at AutoSens and InCabin Europe 2024. We are joined by Paola Iacomussi, Senior Researcher at INRIM, or spelled INRIM, and that stands for the Italian National Metrology Institute. That's the Italian National Metrology Institute. And Paola is in the Department of Applied Metrology and Engineering and is a lecturer at the University of Turin. Paola started her research career at the Research Center of FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, and then moved to the National Metrology Institute, where she worked on photometry, photometry and colorimetry and materials and sources, performance characterization of road lighting and digital cameras. She's developed measurement instruments for third parties, such as a mobile laboratory for the characterization of road lighting systems. She has successfully coordinated several international and national research projects, including the EU-funded SURFACE, and that stands for Road Surface Characterization for Smart Lighting project. And she is currently coordinating the CIE group for the development of a non-biological reference observer for road and automotive applications. Paola, welcome, and thank you for being here, and thank you for helping me with that pronunciation.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're absolutely welcome. So tell us a little bit more about the Italian National Metrology Institute and the work that you're doing there.
Okay, with pleasure. Every country has its own metrology institute.
Okay.
Because we need to build, to maintain, and to disseminate the units of measurement. It means the kilogram, it means the meters,
yes.
And at the best level, they are developed, maintained, and actually disseminated in the National Metrological Institute around the globe.
Right.
So in US, you have the NIST, in Germany they have the PTB, and in Italy we have the INRIM that is in the Torino town.
Okay.
And where I live. Being a metrologist, it means that we are expert in the measurement.
Okay.
So we study the science of measurement, and we apply that to different fields, including automotive field, sensors, and sound.
Sure. So I want to work off of a series of notes that we exchanged back and forth, and I think this will be, one, helpful for me to absorb the topic and to understand your work and to understand your research. This is new territory for me. It's new territory for a lot of our AutoSens and InCabin attendees and viewers. So that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially read the sections of the notes that we exchanged, and then I'll provide a summary, and then you'll elaborate from there. And I think between the two of us, we can come up with a good picture of the work that you're doing. So allow me to start here. So from the notes that Paola and I exchanged, so all normative requirements and CIE reference conditions for road environment, including lighting design, visibility models, and signaling performances, are predicted on the assumption that driving on the road is a visual task of a human driver, like you and I, of a human driver, of sensing the road environment and acting accordingly. First summary, what is the elaboration to that and the application for us here at AutoSens and InCabin?
Sure. First, a short explanation of CIE.
Please, yes, please.
CIE means the International Commission of Lighting.
Okay.
And the acronym doesn't match because it started in French.
Okay.
So it's the Commission Internationale de l'Éclairage. So this is just to explain you let's say the community where everything is born. CIE is devoted to study all aspects of light and its perception. So actually the driving started in the 20th centuries or even at the end of the 19th centuries. And the task was a visual task.
Okay.
So the driver conduct the car, or maybe even the horse before,
Yeah, right.
and perceive the environment visually, and then act to correct the path or act in consequence of what they perceive. It means that since we talk about perception, we need to go back to CAE. And CAE study the perception and the light and the interaction between light and the observer. Obviously, during the years, this concept evolved, including sensors, including road environment, including working environment,
Sure.
lighting for interior, or even the digital representation. And at the base, there is the human perception of light and of color, and of the environment. Because you have to keep in mind that without light, we do not perceive. So if everything is black,
sure, right.
we cannot perceive nor driving.
Right. So from our notes, I'll go back to our notes. So
Sure.
to add on to that, standards state the requirements of all related road elements to ensure safety by guaranteeing contrast threshold, perception, and recognition of artifacts. So this would include obstacles, vehicles, signaling, other users, and so on and so forth. This would be by the CIE standard photometric observer, which is a driver like you and I, a driver able to trigger appropriate corrective actions within a standardized human response time. The summary from our notes that we exchanged, but the more in-depth view and the application, your perspective.
Sure. Since the light, it's a special electromagnetic wavelength, and let's say it's the only electromagnetic wavelength that we can perceive.
Sure.
Because light is like infrared radiation or UV radiation, but we are not able to perceive. So the task of CIE since the beginning was to understand how we perceive light, because our task is to measure light as the human perceive it. Okay. And again, we go back to Metrology Institute because the task is to measure light.
Right.
And then to measure how the environment light is lit. But the task here was to understand how not me, not you, or whatever perceive light, but to provide a description that is enough generic. So early in the 20th centuries, the research started and were finalized in 1924 by CIE with the standard reference observer, photometric observer. Photometric, it means the light in the daylight condition.
Okay.
Because our eye performs differently depending on the level of the light. So we are also able to perceive something during night with just the moonlight.
Yes.
But we are not able to perceive color when there is too low light. It means that it's a condition of vision that is called scotopic. While during daylight, it's a condition of vision that is called photopic, and so photometry. And so the reference photometric observer, and this reference photometric observer is used to measure light. So to say that there is enough light on this desk to perform a writing, or maybe there is enough light to perceive your face.
Okay.
And this is the standard reference observer. So going back, we needed to measure the road environment and our task, driving, it's a visual task. We perceive and we act consequently. And so we need enough light to perceive. And obviously during daylight, there's no problem. Mother Nature take care of it.
Provides, yes.
Well, during night, they started lighting the road or lighting the environment. Even during the beginning of the 20th century. So the task was to understand what is the threshold to perceive an obstacle, to perceive a person walking toward you,
right.
and so on.
Right.
And the task was to measure what is the threshold of the light level,
right.
to allow you to perceive. And measurement of light means to use the standard reference observer for photometry of CAE. And so let's say this is the beginning of the standard, and this is how everywhere we can measure light. We can measure if the road lighting system or this lighting system in the interior perform well, doesn't annoy us, or does not provide glare, or enable my vision. And so we are using that to establish some values. And the reference standard, so standard for road lighting or for performances about road signaling, road marking, everything, is provide some value in different quantity, because this, let's say, it's more particular. So we are in Europe, we design road lighting system considering the luminance that is the actual quantity perceived by the eye. In some other country, they prefer to use another approach in terms of how much light is on the road and not what the driver perceives, and so on. And have you ever wondered why the stop sign is that kind of red?
Yes. Yeah.
Or the yellow sign is that kind of yellow?
Right.
But
right.
Why? This is again because the CAE. Because CAE study also the perception of color. And again, the color, it's a perceived quality that it's strictly human. If you switch off the light and you close a door in a room completely dark, and then we have this paper, this green, okay, and this journal stay there in the dark, but no one say that it's a green journal.
Right.
When we perceive the green, when we open the door, we come inside human being and switch on the light.
Yes.
And so we perceive the green. So the task was to measure the green. And CAE developed a standard reference observer for colorimetry, so the measurement of color. And the problem with road environment is to ensure that everybody, not considering obviously daltonism and specific problem in color perception, but more or less everybody, also people maybe with the light impairment, can perceive the red of the stop, the yellow of the other sign, and so on.
Right.
And so, again, in the standard, based on the CAE value, there are some, let's call it, region of color, where your road marking colored or your road signal color must stay in order to ensure that the drivers perceive the red light or the green light.
Sure.
And so everything is based on this reference observer, because the assumption was that driving was a human perceiving the environment, visually perceiving the environment.
Sure. from our notes that we exchanged. So driving now is no longer a human-only visual task. So this reliance on the human visual system ultimately limits the development and performance of road infrastructure signaling and ADAS functionality. Thoughts on that? The summary from our notes, but the more in-depth perspective.
Yeah, everything must comply with this kind of color.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So people must understand the color. Now we are no longer alone in the car.
Right.
Let's say we have several ADAS or several sensors that can help us, and that sensor should help us with our perception.
Right.
It means that our camera need to understand the color. But what I said before, color exists only for human.
Right.
Only because human. For the physics, this journal again is green.
Good example.
Because there are some, let's say, dye inside. There is a specific chemical structure that absorb some wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum and reflect some other. Then we light this journal with the white light, and in this case, this dye they used to print it reflect more in the green part of the spectrum. That light come into my eye, and I say green.
Right.
But from the physical point of view, it means that some wavelengths are absorbed, some other are reflected. And look, this kind of dye of not color, let's say this kind of print, just reflect the wavelength between 500 and 590.
Sure.
This is the physics. While the man or the human being is green.
Right.
And this just to say that the camera were banned to provide the green answer, and it means that they receive the reflected wavelength, have several technical stuff in order to separate the color and so on, and to provide on our screen the green color.
Right, right. From our notes as a final summary point then, so given everything we've discussed, the ultimate idea is to approach road signaling in a particular road marking by a non-human point of view.
Yeah. That's the point.
That's the point.
That's the point, because we forced the camera, the sensor, to behave like a human, because the standard provide clear indication to satisfy human being. And so everything was banned to provide the same color we perceive.
Sure, sure.
But it's important, when you drive a car, for you, it's more important to understand green light or to understand the semantic meaning of green light.
Yes.
So go on.
Right.
Or stop. So the idea is a flipped approach to camera and to sensor performances, and to provide, to free them from the human perception, and to put them available the semantic meaning first, and then the color is useless.
Right.
It's the semantic meaning, the most important part. And I developed this idea when I led that European project about road surfaces.
Yes.
Because road surfaces, okay, they are gray or in some country red or with some few color, but road surfaces reflect in space the light in a very particular way. And so I faced for the first time the need of autonomous driving, because again, on road, we use the standard reference observer for photometry, but also some standard reference geometrical conditions that are based on a human being driving a car, so sitting in a car at 1 meter and 50 high from the road, framing the road, looking at the road very far away. And so we characterize the road, so the road surfaces, with 1 degree angle of observation. But the sensor do not frame the road as me at 1 meter and 50. And from then it started this idea that we bend all the sensor to human being response, but in road is the semantic meaning that is important. The semantic meaning is red means stop, means alert, and green light means go on, let's go. And since as a human we are limited just to the visible range, obviously the semantic meaning is within the color, within the visible range. But a camera, a LiDAR, a radar, or whatever, is not limited to the visible range. And so the idea is to find a way to transmit or to put available outside the visible range, to, let's say, also facilitate the development of very robust and trustworthy sensor, and especially the development of specific KPIs, so key performance indicator, that currently, let's say, if we face a KPI based on the CIE standard reference photometric observer of a camera, of its capacity to provide good color on the standard reference colorimetric observer and so on, we limit the performances of the camera. And so we have actually to flip the approach and to free the camera performance, the sensor performances from this this human reference observer. So the idea is that CIE is the best place, since all reference observers were born within CIE, is the best place to develop a new reference observer, non-biological, that can be useful for sensor performances, for automotive application, and as well ADAS and autonomous vehicle too. And so I'm leading this research forum of CIE that will have tomorrow his first meeting, and the task will be to understand the need of the different party, and as well to better understand the performances and the behavior of sensor, but without this approach toward human being. And then I hope in the future to provide a new standard within the CIE, then to implement it into, maybe, I hope, finger crossed, into a new standard at the different level. I have to say that I already had a lot of meeting with people involved in road marking. And they are really interested in this approach, because we do not need to evaluate the contrast of road marking toward, let's say, the asphalt, just only for human, but we can think also for new sensors and so on.
Paola, it's so wonderful to have you here at AutoSens and InCabin Europe here in Barcelona for our 2024, our European 2024 event. I think you bring a new and unique perspective an important perspective, but new and unique. I've been part of this conference series for 7 years now, 8 years now, and I always enjoy when experts like yourself are invited to come speak and to give a talk and to give a presentation. In the automotive world, how many of us have thought that metrology would be applicable? So I have learned a lot from just hearing your talk and doing this interview. And then thank you for the notes that you sent me, and then helping me with the pronunciations and helping me with some of the terminologies as well. I've been in automotive all my professional career, and this is new to me. So I think it's wonderful that you're here sharing these ideas that maybe some of us who have been in automotive our whole lives still have not been exposed to, but they're necessary if we want to create ultimately safer vehicles. So I can't thank you enough, one, for just being here and sharing your thoughts and your expertise, and then two, providing me a lot of help in organizing my notes, and again, helping me with the pronunciation of some of this terminology that I'm seeing for the first time. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, but let me say to conclude that it's absolutely a brand new for everybody.
Yeah.
Because I was named the chairwoman of this research forum of CIE just this year. So
amazing.
It's really a brand new, and I hope that a lot of interest party will join, because I have to say it's a huge effort, and we need different expertise.
Yeah. Well, Paola, from all of us here at AutoSens and InCabin, I wish you a great rest of the show. Safe travels home here from Barcelona. I look forward to being able to do this again sometime real soon, but in the meantime, thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
More to come from AutoSens and InCabin Europe 2024 from the Fiera de Barcelona alongside Paola Iacomussi. I'm Carl Anthony, AutoVision News Radio.